and sisters, I don't know what this world is coming to.
From the world-famous Blackbird Studios, it's the Rave X podcast. And now, Rave X.
Hey now, welcome to the show, guys. It's the Rave X podcast. I'm your host, Rave X, episode 47, Deceased Voices of Rock. So we're going to do a list of about 5 with a couple of honorable mentions, and we're just going to talk about people, artists, musicians who have heavily influenced the face of rock and roll and maybe changed it forever. And then I'll give you, a little this and that about how these people influenced me as a musician. But first, we got to pay the bills around here at the Blackbird Studios, so you know me, man. I'll take on any sponsor I can get. And today we've got a new one for you. Today's show is sponsored by The Manhole. That's right, The Manhole, the men's only nightclub located in the heart of historic Lowell, Mass. And remember this, Wednesday night is Wiener Night at The Manhole. But then again, I'm guessing every night is Wiener Night? Okay. So come one, come all, as long as you show up to The Manhole, located in the heart of historic Lowell, Mass. No cover charge before 10 p.m. See you there. I gotta get new sponsors. Well, now that we got all the business out of the way, you know the drill, guys. Let's dive in. Starting right at the top of the list here, man. Top 5 deceased voices of rock, with a couple of honorable mentions at the end. Now look, my list is going to differ than your list. I'm sure I've forgotten some people. These are just people that came to mind quickly that kind of inspired me, or at a certain point in my life I was listening to these people and they really had a sort of an effect on me. And apparently an effect on millions of people, because a lot of the deceased people on these lists have sold millions of albums, man. They're legends and true icons. Starting right at the top of the list here, man. One Janis Joplin, born 1943 in Port Arthur, Texas. Fortunately, she died, man, at the age of 27 in 1970 of a heroin overdose. And you're going to see this as a recurring theme with these lists, man. A lot of these people did not make it into old age, whether it was drugs, booze, alcohol, something about, I don't know, the flame that burns twice as bright burns only half as long. Yeah, Janis Joplin, man, just an amazing singer. And it's not about a female singer or a guy singer. I mean, you want to see a musician, a lead singer, get out there and leave it all on the stage, man. Just singing at the top of her lungs, man. And just amazing. And I never owned any Janis Joplin albums. But, back when I was a teenager, man, I dated a couple of hippie chicks and they were really into Janis Joplin. And that was my sort of my first exposure to her. And then seeing some of the videos and going like, wow, like this Janis Joplin, she ain't faking it, man. She means it, Just a soulful, angst-ridden voice. And kind of a sad life, man, from what I've read. She never fancied herself as an attractive woman, and no one really ever sort of told her she was attractive. So her sort of, way of making herself feel better was to have this amazing voice. And, she just died, sadly, of a heroin overdose, man. Of all the ways to go, Janis Joplin, deceased, age 27, in Los Angeles, California. She was cremated, man, and she had her ashes scattered in the Pacific Ocean. Wow. Moving on to number 4. Now, if you guys don't know this fella here, I mean, this guy, you talk about a powerful lead singer, man. You talk about someone with some lungs of steel. This guy, not only was he a painfully handsome man, incredibly talented singer, songwriter, on the forefront of the grunge movement back in the early 90s, a man who was born Chris John Boyle, but you might know him better by his stage name, fellas, Mr. Chris Cornell. He was just an amazing singer, man, and I had my time singing in a rock band. I wasn't very good, so I left that to someone else. My thing was guitar and shit, so I figured I'd stick with the guitar and shit. Yeah, you want to see a good frontman for a rock band. Just aggressive, in your face, just all this hair, all over the place, man. One of my favorite songs from Soundgarden is Jesus Christ Pose, and a lot of people didn't hear that, man. I don't know if it was ever released, but I remember hearing that song at a friend's house and going, who the hell is that? And they were like, it's Soundgarden. And I was like, what? Yeah, anyway, Mr. Chris John Boyle Cornell. He was born July 20th, 1964 in Seattle, Washington, and he is no longer with us, or he wouldn't be on this list. He hung himself, man. He committed suicide, and right now, as I'm saying this to you, I get chills, man, because, geez, talk to someone if you can, reach out to someone, do anything but commit suicide, especially, we're all special, but Mr. Chris Cornell was just such an amazing lead singer. He leaves behind an amazing legacy of work, man, from Soundgarden, Audioslave later on. You guys don't listen to Audioslave. Buy yourself a Audioslave record. And a lot of his solo stuff was just amazing and great. Such a great, I'm running out of words to describe him. Just an amazing lead singer / musician, Mr. Chris Cornell. Rest in peace, buddy. So rounding out the list, coming in right in the middle here at number 3, this person, you can't say enough. You can't say enough about all of these people, but I'm talking about the Lizard King himself, Mr. James Douglas Morrison. You might know him better as Jim Morrison, lead singer of The Doors, man. He was born December 8th, 1943 in Melbourne, Florida. Unfortunately, passed away July 3rd, 1971 at the age of 27, man. Too many of these people joined the 27 club, you know what I mean? All of these people, most of their ages were around 27. Like I said, they didn't fade away, man. They burnt out quick, fast, like a flame. Boom, done, extinguished. But Mr. James Morrison, man, I remember seeing the movie The Doors that came out in like 1990-something-ish. And after that, I was hooked. I went out and I got the Doors box set, listened to all the Doors songs. And the thing is, man, a lot of lead singers will get training or they'll, have some type of vocal coach or something. Jim Morrison was just a poet, and he would sit on the beach and just write poetry. He bumped into a keyboardist named Ray Manzarek, and they started the band The Doors. And, his poetry, his lyrics, super surreal, just out there, right? Just out there, man. It was the 60s, a lot of drugs, LSD and stuff. And I don't think that anything really embodies that more than Jim Morrison. His song Not to Touch the Earth just had amazing, amazing lyrics, and I remember listening to that song. It's a funny story. I was hanging out with a couple of friends, and I wasn't really into the Doors at that point, but we're all hanging out, man, doing a little bit of this and that. And my buddy put on some music, and the Doors came on, and he started kind of singing along with it and stuff, and just the lyrics were just so, like, out of this world, you know what I mean? He says, some outlaws live by the side of the lake, the minister's daughter's in love with a snake, who lives by a well by the side of the road. Wake up, girl, we're almost home. Just like crazy stuff, just out there stuff. Really, really affected me, you know what I mean, as far as my vision of writing music and shit like that. He died due to heart failure, due to alcoholism. They really couldn't find any cause of death. It's not like he OD'd on heroin. He just lived fast and died young, man. He died in Paris, France, again at the age of 27. That's all you can say about that. Just an amazing lead singer. Inspired so many people to get out there, get in front of a mic and sing. He had style, grace, flair. No one quite like Mr. Jim Morrison, man. Very influential person in rock. A lot of people who came after Jim Morrison, you always saw little shades of Morrison in people, especially Ian Astbury from The Cult. He's just like a okay Jim Morrison ripoff. Rest in peace again, buddy. Here's to you. Now, the person at number 2 on our list really needs no introduction. Literally, everyone has heard this guy. Everyone knows who this person is. He was born David Robert Jones, but you might know him better as Mr. David Bowie. Born January 8th, 1947, in Brixton, London, UK. Unfortunately, man, as all these people on his list have, he has passed away. January 10th, 2016, in New York City. And he died of cancer, and he knew he was going. He wanted to leave one last thing for his fans, and that was the plan. A lot of people die in music, and then some music comes out afterwards, like unfinished tracks, but he knew he was dying for a long time, and he was so grateful that the fans loved him as much as we did, and gave him, this great life and stardom and fame and all that. He worked on an album called Black Star, I believe, and it literally came out like the day after he died or a week after he died. And from what I've been told, I heard a couple of songs off of it. It was like one of his best albums, man. I wish that when my time comes, someone will find some great music that I recorded, but unfortunately, what are you going to do, No one is as good and as prolific and just as eclectic as Mr. David Bowie. And I remember before I was kind of a rock dude and I had like music channels, you'd always see videos of David Bowie, and even in the black community, David Bowie was okay, you know what I mean? There were always people who were white and were doing rock music, but if you were cool enough, black folk were like, okay, we love David Bowie too. Everybody loved him, man. All of his songs are great. You listen to early David Bowie, and it's completely different than later David Bowie, which just shows you how much he grew as a musician. And he was cremated. His ashes were scattered in Bali. So that's where Mr. David Bowie resides, till this day, an American legend and icon, Mr. David Bowie. All right, fellas, we're about to wrap this up. You ready for number one? Oh, man, this was tough. I didn't know who to put at number one. At first, I had Morrison at number one. I didn't know who to put there. The top deceased influential musician of rock and roll of all time. The GOAT, one of the greatest lead singers of all time, man. Mr. Farrokh Bulsara. You might know him by his stage name. Little guy named Mr. Freddie Mercury. Freddie Mercury was just amazing, man. And, everyone has heard every Queen song. Maybe you didn't know they were Queen. We Will Rock You, Bohemian Rhapsody, Crazy Little Thing Called Love, that song, Bicycle, all of these cool songs. Killer Queen, that's a great song. He just had such an amazing voice. And I can't think of another person who, when you see them singing, you realized, oh, he was born to do this? Like, I'm an okay musician and I'm an okay podcaster. But, Freddie Mercury was born to sing, and that's what he did. It was his passion. He gave everything, man. And one of the last shows he did, he was in the throes of full-blown AIDS, man. There's no way to sugarcoat it. Freddie Mercury was gay. Back then, you couldn't really come out as gay. And, he got AIDS like a lot of people did in the early 80s. Back then, we didn't have the medications. We didn't really know what was going on. And November 1991, he succumbed to the virus. And in England, man, UK, London, England. And it's so horrible, man. It's always horrible when anyone dies, but he had years ahead of him, man. Who knows? He could have just written, double the amazing songs that he'd already had written. He was born September 5th, 1946 in Zanzibar, and changed his name to Freddie Mercury because he thought it would appeal to more of a Western audience. But yes, topping the list at number one, deceased lead singers, pioneers of rock and roll. He just did it all, from hard rock to like really kind of slow melodic ballads to sort of poppy stuff. I don't think anyone can beat the voice of Freddie Mercury, man. Just so cultured, to have this amazing range, man. And that last show he did, man, I think it was Live Aid or something like that at like Wembley Stadium. He just gave it all, and they didn't even know if he could stand up. And afterwards, man, he went off stage and collapsed, and they had to pick him up. But he did it for us, man. He did it for him. And at least we've got so much stuff to enjoy from Mr. Farrokh Bulsara, a legend and icon, also known as the great Freddie Mercury. Rest in peace, buddy. We love you. Wow, man. So that's our list of the top 5 deceased voices of rock. Now, we got some honorable mentions here, man. I just got to mention, someone was asking me when I was telling them about the show, how come no Jimi Hendrix? Jimi Hendrix is in a category of his own. He is an icon. He's a legend, of course. Jimi Hendrix is just a sacred cow. He's on his own plane. Of course, Jimi Hendrix is one of the most influential deceased voices of rock. Also, Kurt Cobain, Lane Staley, and Prince. Cobain, the grunge era, influenced tons of kids to go out and grab a guitar. Lane Staley, a horrible drug addict, but boy, his lyrics, his voice, his tone, the wavering in his voice, the angst, that was great. And Prince, Prince was just amazing. I saw Prince in concert. That blew my effing mind. But I had to keep it to a tight 5, man. So that is our list for today. Thank you for joining me. RaveX Podcast, episode 47, Deceased Voices of Rock. Do me a favor, kids, subscribe. Go over to the Bandcamp site, ravexmusic.bandcamp.com, and hit follow. And do me a favor, kids, remember this. Sometimes, just sometimes, it's better to burn out than fade away. My name's RaveX, and I'm out of here.
That was the RaveX Podcast. Be sure to click like and subscribe. For podcasts, new music, and all things RaveX, go to youtube.com and search RaveX Music.